Welcome to the Goode Health Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Goode, a certified functional medicine practitioner, registered nutritionist, and author. In this podcast, we delve into the world of energy and immune health and wellness with positivity, from optimal health and energy to stress and burnout, right through to immune conditions such as thyroid and autoimmune disease. We deep dive into functional medicine, nutritional medicine, and lifestyle medicine, as well as the personal stories of our amazing guests, from Olympians to famous faces and guest experts from all different parts of the health and wellness world. It's time to stop letting your health hold you back and become the optimal version of you. Don't forget to come and join the conversation on Instagram at Goode_Health, that's GOODE, or visit the website NicoleGoodeHealth.com to find out more.
We hear the word resilience everywhere, especially when we're talking about stress. It's held up as something to aspire to, the ability to cope, to endure, to keep going no matter what life throws at us. And for many people, resilience has quietly become synonymous with pushing through. Being resilient means not breaking, not slowing down, not letting the stress show. And while that idea of resilience may look impressive from the outside, it comes at a cost, because tolerating more stress is not the same as being resilient. It's often just prolonged compensation. Most people I work with are already incredibly resilient by that definition. They've coped for years, they've managed busy lives, high responsibility, emotional load, illness and uncertainty. They've kept going long after their body asks for rest. And eventually that version of resilience stops working. And this is where I want to gently redefine what resilience actually means. True resilience isn't just about how much stress you can tolerate, it's about how well your body can recover. It's about flexibility. The ability to respond to demand and then return to baseline. The ability to activate when needed and stand down afterwards. The ability to experience stress without staying stuck in it. When resilience is understood this way, a lot of things start to make sense. You can be incredibly capable and still feel depleted. You can cope well and still be under physiological strain. You can be functioning and yet slowly losing recovery capacity underneath the surface. And that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means your body has been working very hard to keep up. One of the most important truths to understand, and one that's often overlooked, is this. You can't build resilience on an already stressed system. Trying to become more resilient by pushing harder, optimizing more, or tolerating additional stress only adds to the load. It doesn't restore the capacity to recover. Resilience doesn't grow through effort alone. It grows through safety, through regulation, and through recovery. And for many people, just hearing that is a relief, because it means you don't need to toughen up or try harder or go back to who you were before. You don't need to prove resilience. You need to rebuild it from the inside out. And that rebuilding starts not with coping better, but with allowing the body to recover more fully. And this is what we're going to explore in today's episode, because this is important to whichever pattern of stress you are in. What resilience really looks like, why stress recovery isn't linear, and how rebuilding capacity happens safely without returning to burnout. Because resilience isn't about how much stress you can handle, it's about how well your body can recover. So let's start with why stress recovery isn't linear. One of the most important things to understand about stress recovery is that it's not going to just steadily improve really evenly in a linear state. Most people expect recovery to look like a straight line. You change something, you feel better, and then you keep improving. And if it doesn't happen that way, it's easy to assume something is wrong, or that you're doing it incorrectly, or it's not working, or you're just not disciplined enough, or that you're simply not the kind of person who recovers well. But stress recovery rarely works like that, because the body doesn't recover all at once. It recovers in layers. When a nervous system has been under chronic load, it has adapted. It has learned patterns of vigilance, overactivation, shutdown, or collapse of capacity. And those patterns don't disappear overnight, not because you're stuck, but because the system is cautious. It changes gradually through repeated signals of safety, consistency, and support, as we've already seen. Early on, recovery can feel subtle, sometimes almost disappointingly so. People often say, I'm doing the right things, but I don't feel dramatically different. And that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It usually means the body is shifting underneath the surface. Early improvements are often much quieter than people expect. Instead of suddenly feeling calm and energized, you might notice that you're just having fewer crashes. A stressful day still feels stressful, but maybe you recover a little bit faster afterwards. Your energy might still dip, but maybe it becomes a little bit more predictable. You may still have difficult moments, but they don't take you out in the same way. Even small changes like waking with slightly less heaviness, feeling marginally less reactive, or having a bit more capacity after busy days are meaningful signals. They're signs that that flexibility is returning, and flexibility is one of the most important markers of regulation. And clinically, this is something I emphasize often. Regulation improves flexibility before it improves energy. Many people measure recovery by how energized they feel, but the body often rebuilds resilience by restoring flexibility first and the ability to respond and recover without getting stuck. That might look like your nervous system settling a little more quickly after stress, or your sleep becoming slightly deeper, or your digestion becoming slightly less reactive. These changes don't always feel dramatic, but they are foundational. And another important part of non-linear recovery is fluctuations. A difficult week doesn't mean you're back at the beginning. A bad night's sleep doesn't erase progress. A stressful event doesn't undo regulation. It simply reveals where the nervous system still needs support. And this is where many people go wrong. They interpret fluctuations as failure. They tell themselves that they were doing so well, and now they're not. They panic and they push harder, or they give up, assuming it's pointless. But fluctuations don't mean failure. They're just a normal part of recovery. In fact, stress recovery often includes moments where you become more aware of your state. As the system begins to come out of chronic compensation, you may notice fatigue or sensitivity more clearly. That's not regression, it's awareness returning. This is why I often tell people, don't measure progress solely by how you feel on your hardest day. Measure it by how you recover afterwards. Recovery time shortening, crashes becoming less frequent, nervous system responses becoming less intense. They're all signs of resilience building. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I just want to feel better quickly, it's understandable. But the body tends to recover in the order that's safest, not in the order that's most convenient to you. Early recovery often feels much quieter than people expect. It's subtle, it's layered, it's not always obvious day to day, but over time it becomes undeniable. And when you understand that, you stop turning recovery into performance. You stop scanning for proof that you're improving. You stop judging yourself for normal fluctuations. You start giving your nervous system what it needs most, consistent support and permission to change gradually. When people try to recover from stress, one of the biggest challenges they face is not effort, it's sequencing. Many people are doing the right things, but at the wrong time. They're trying to rebuild capacity before their nervous system feels safe enough to support it. And when that happens, recovery feels fragile, inconsistent, or impossible to sustain. This is why I think it's helpful to look at stress recovery in phases, not as rigid steps, not as a checklist, but phases that reflect how the body actually rebuilds resilience. And these phases are safety, regulation, and capacity. They're not linear in the sense that you move through them once and never return. You may revisit them at different times or find that different systems are in different phases at once. But understanding the order matters because the body follows a sequence whether we acknowledge it or not. That first phase is safety. Safety is often misunderstood. It's not about feeling calm or relaxed all the time. It's about reducing threat signaling enough for the nervous system to stop bracing itself. When the body perceives ongoing threat, whether that threat is physical, emotional, cognitive, or internal, it prioritizes survival. Energy is redirected, recovery is postponed, flexibility narrows. In this state, nothing truly changes. That's why the anchor line here matters so much. Nothing changes until your body feels safe. Safety begins with removing unnecessary demand. That might mean reducing stimulation, simplifying routines, lowering expectations, or creating more predictability in daily life. It often involves recognizing where pressure is coming from, not just externally, but internally. Urgency, self-criticism, the constant drive to fix things can all keep the nervous system on alert. Safety is about containment. It's about sending repeated signals that the body does not need to stay in high alert in order to cope. And this phase can often feel counterintuitive for people who are used to pushing through. It can feel like nothing is happening because the changes are so subtle. But without this foundation, the next phases don't hold. Once safety is established, even partially, even as it starts to come back, the body can begin to move into the second phase. So you may still be establishing safety, but you may start to move into the second phase of regulation. And regulation is where rhythm and flexibility start to return. And this doesn't mean that you don't still need to build safety. But this phase is about restoring the body's ability to move between states, effort and rest, activation and recovery, without getting stuck in one. Sleep often begins to improve here, not necessarily perfectly, but more predictably. Digestion may become less reactive. Energy may still fluctuate, but recovery may improve. Stress hormones begin to settle a little bit more into appropriate rhythms. Cortisol timing might improve. The nervous system may become less reactive to small stresses. Regulation doesn't mean the absence of stress. It just means that the body can process stress more efficiently. This is why the phrase regulation is the bridge between survival and resilience is so important. Without regulation, resilience is just endurance. With regulation, the system can adapt without being overwhelmed. This phase often requires consistency more than intensity. Small, repeatable practices that support rhythm. Sleep timing, regular meals, gentle movement, predictable routines, they become powerful here. And then gradually, as that regulation stabilizes, the body becomes ready for the third phase, which is capacity. Capacity is what most people think they're aiming for from the beginning. This is the more energy, more tolerance, more resilience. But capacity only grows sustainably when recovery and safety are protected. In this phase, the system has enough flexibility and safety already to begin rebuilding strength. Not just physical strength, but emotional and cognitive capacity as well. Tolerance increases. Stressful events are still going to happen, but they don't take it out of you as much. Recovery happens more quickly. Energy becomes more available. Importantly, capacity rebuilding is gradual. It's not about returning to the old baseline as quickly as possible. It's about creating a new baseline that's more sustainable. This is where many people are tempted to rush, to do more, to push harder, to test their limits. But capacity grows best when it's respected. Capacity grows when recovery is protected. If recovery is sacrificed in the name of progress, capacity will shrink again. If recovery is prioritized, capacity expands naturally. When you understand these phases, something important shifts. You stop blaming yourself for not being better yet. You can stop forcing yourself into strategies that your body isn't ready for. And you can start working with your nervous system instead of against it. And that's where sustainable resilience actually begins, not through effort, but through alignment. One of the most frustrating experiences people have when they're trying to recover from stress is this feeling of being stuck, of doing all the right things and still not getting better. They're exercising, eating well, meditating, sleeping more, taking supplements, optimizing routines. And yet instead of feeling more resilient, they feel more depleted, more sensitive, sometimes even worse than before. When this happens, it's very easy to assume the problem is effort, that you're not being consistent enough, that you need to try harder, be more disciplined, or add more tools. But very often the issue isn't what you're doing, it's when you're doing it. High-intensity tools applied to a depleted system don't build resilience, they just increase stress. Practices that are designed to optimize performance, so intense exercise, aggressive breath work, cold exposure, fasting, strict routines, they all place demands on the nervous system. In a regulated system, those demands can be adaptive. In a stressed nervous system, they become another threat. And this is where optimization before regulation delays recovery. When the body is still prioritizing survival, asking it to perform better is asking it to override its own safety signals. And the body responds by pushing back through fatigue, through crashes, inflammation, disruptive sleep, or emotional reactivity. From the outside, this can look like failure. From the inside, it can feel confusing and discouraging. But clinically, this pattern is very clear. The body isn't resisting recovery, it's protecting itself. Another way this shows up is through stop-start cycles. People have a good week, feel a bit better, and then try to get back to normal. They increase activity, add intensity, or take on more, and then crash. That crash isn't lack of resilience. It's a sign that capacity hasn't been rebuilt yet. And this is why sequencing matters so much. Safety first, regulation second, capacity third. When that order is reversed, even helpful tools become stressful. When it's respected, recovery becomes steadier and far more sustainable. Many people feel like they've failed at stress recovery because they've tried everything. But what they've actually done is apply advanced tools to early stage nervous system. And that's not a personal shortcoming, it's just a mismatch. The problem isn't what you're doing, it's when you're doing it. And once you understand this, a lot of the pressure lifts. And you can stop blaming yourself. Stop constantly changing strategies. Stop chasing the next fix. Instead, begin asking a different question. What is your system ready for right now? And that question changes everything. It shifts recovery from effort-based to responsiveness-based, from performance to pacing, from forcing progress to allowing it. And that's where real resilience begins to rebuild, not through doing more, but through doing the right thing at the right time. One of the hardest parts of stress recovery isn't physiology. It's the misunderstanding. Many people feel frustrated, not because they're doing nothing, but because they're doing a lot and still not feeling better. And over time, that frustration often turns inward, assuming that you're getting it wrong, that you're weak, that you're failing at something that everyone else seems to manage. And I want to gently normalize something here. Most people struggling with stress recovery are not doing too little. They're either doing too much or doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Another really common mistake is treating rest as laziness. Many people feel deeply uncomfortable resting without justification. If they stop, they feel guilty. If they slow down, they criticize themselves. Rest becomes something that has to be earned or something that you do whilst quietly judging yourself for needing it. But rest isn't a moral failing, it's a biological requirement. When rest is framed as laziness, the nervous system never fully stands down, even during rest. There's stress signaling that is continuing because the body feels judged rather than supportive. Another common mistake is forcing calm. People try to meditate their way out of stress. They tell themselves to relax, breathe, let go, and become more tense when it doesn't work. Calm can't be forced onto a nervous system that doesn't feel safe. When calm becomes the goal rather than the outcome, it often increases pressure rather than reducing it. Overhauling life all at once is another trap. People decide they need to change everything, their routine, diet, exercise, mindset, schedule, and they try to do it all immediately. For a stressed nervous system, this feels like more demand, not less. Even positive changes can be overwhelming when introduced too quickly. And then there's the mistake of measuring progress by productivity. So asking yourself, am I doing more? Can I handle more? Am I back to normal yet? But productivity is a really poor measure of recovery. Early stress recovery often looks like less, fewer crashes, smoother recovery, more predictability. These changes don't always show up as a visible output, but they are signals of real physiological improvement. When progress is measured only by what you can produce, recovery can feel invisible, and that invisibility fuels that self-doubt. All of these mistakes have something in common. They turn recovery into a performance, and stress recovery fails when it's treated like a performance. And if you recognize yourself in any of these mistakes, I want you to know this: nothing has gone wrong. You haven't failed. You've simply been trying to recover in a system that rewards pushing rather than listening. And once that pressure lifts, recovery often becomes far more accessible than people expect. By now, you hopefully have a much clearer understanding of what stress recovery actually requires. Safety before resilience, regulation before capacity, and sequencing rather than force. And yet, even with that understanding, many people still find stress recovery hard to do alone. Not because they lack insight, but because the very systems that need support, the decision-making, the consistency, the follow-through, are the ones that are the most affected by chronic stress. When capacity is low, choice becomes tiring. Guesswork becomes stressful. And trying to hold everything in your head can feel like just another demand. Rather than introducing everything at once, support is layered carefully. This sequencing matters because even helpful strategies can overwhelm a system that isn't ready for them yet. When the framework is held for you, then your nervous system doesn't have to work as hard to stay organized, motivated, or consistent. That reduction in mental effort in itself is regulating. This is the philosophy behind the studio. The lessons are short and digestible. They're designed for a tired and busy nervous system. The focus is on small steps so you never have to try and hold everything all at once. And the structure is intentional to guide recovery without adding pressure. If you want to join the waitlist for the studio, or if you want to jump straight in, depending on when you're listening to this episode, the link is in the show notes below this episode. As we close out this episode and the stress series, I want to invite you into a moment of reflection. What would it feel like to stop pushing? Not forever, not dramatically, but just enough to let your nervous system breathe. And what does your body need next? Not in 6 months' time, not once everything is sorted, but right now. Often the most supportive step isn't the biggest one. It's the one that reduces pressure rather than adding to it. You don't need to become more resilient. You just need to feel safe enough to recover. Resilience will return when pressure is removed, when recovery is protected, when the body no longer feels that it has to brace in order to cope. And support changes everything. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like it or rate it on your podcast app. And if there's somebody you think would benefit, then please share this episode. I'll see you next week on the Goode Health Podcast.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Goode Health Podcast. Do share the episode with anyone you think it may benefit and help us to spread the word on all things health and wellness by rating, liking, or subscribing to the podcast. If you want more, you can listen to more episodes on your favourite podcast app or sign up to my newsletter for my favourite tips, tricks, health advice, brands, recipes, and more at nicolegoodehealth.com/newsletter. Have a lovely week. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Goode Health Podcast.